Nice. So we're talking about 3 keys to increasing the speed in your swing. So typically people have some issues like short swings, being forward bent for way too long, and then really just moving yourself too slowly. So we've got national world long drive extraordinaire competitor Brad Skupaka here, who's better to talk about distance than someone in that kind of world class here. So instead, what you really need to do is make a longer swing. We're going to talk about a ton of different ways that you can actually wind it up, make a longer swing. And then how getting down and getting back up, as simple as that sounds, and it's a good life lesson anyway, is really how you're going to execute hitting this farther. So let's start with just the short swing piece. So go ahead and set up to this tee. And while you're doing that, let me just pop in how long this swing was. So check that out. You can see it in both views too, Brad. How the top of your backswing, you've got your shoulders that are turned. And by turning, I just mean they're almost moving somewhat in an ellipse like that. And you can see it a little bit less from the side view camera, but from here, how your shoulders, and specifically your left shoulder relative to your right, your left shoulder is in front of your chin, your right shoulder is being occluded by your head, but you've turned yourself a little more than 90 degrees relative to where you started. That's a huge part of all this. Same thing for your hips. Those have turned close to 45 degrees as well. That's the start of winding it up. And if anything, if you want to hit it farther, do you want to turn less or more?
More to make a longer backswing. There's more potential power ultimately for the downswing.
That's good. You've been listening very nicely. Yeah, longer swings, wind it up. So I think a lot of people are nervous when they struggle to hit it far that you need to maybe make your swing a little bit shorter, or if you're concerned on, you read some bad golf advice, you might hear don't turn your hips very much, but turn your shoulders a lot. You've seen plenty of long drivers, yourself included. Is that what people are actually trying to do?
It's really the opposite recipe. It's turning your hips as much as you can, so then you can turn your shoulders as much as you can.
I laugh because it really is pretty hilarious to think of that's how you should execute your swing, as if you're a human being, you aren't a rubber band. And that's sometimes how that is described, that you're trying to really torque the amount that you're turning in your upper body or in your torso specifically, but don't turn your hips very much because that really helps you just unwind. But with that analogy, that would mean like I pulled my arm way back. If the same were true, I'm really stretching all the tendons, ligaments, and every muscle in my arm to do this. And when I relax, it doesn't make me fling my arm forward. It's the opposite of that. Nothing really happens. So there is a separation between your hips and your shoulders and how much you turn them in the backswing. It isn't the place to start, though, for creating power like winding up that spring. That's a good way to get hurt, so don't do that. So instead, to make a longer swing, what's like a couple pieces of advice you'd have for people to wind it up more?
Yeah, one thing, again, just starting with turning the hips more, and then there's some things we can do to make that even easier. I mean, I would even just start with having some amount of foot flare, especially the trail foot for a lot of golfers. You know, we always see people come in having their feet really straight.
So that's a good point when Brad's describing that. So if you were looking at him from the front here, you can see how his toes are basically aimed perpendicular to his target line. They're aimed just straight ahead. That just makes it harder to turn your knee outward on this side and the same on the other, and it makes your pelvis more immobile, harder to move that way. So to make yourself effectively more flexible, a good way to do that is turn both toes out 20 degrees. There's nothing that says you couldn't turn them out even more than that, but that's enough. That'll work. And then that's starting to like preset his right knee to be turned outward more, which is making him more flexible. So that's a good start. What else you got? Or is that it?
Well, I mean, we could stop there and probably help a lot of people.
Well, that would be a good place to begin. That's why it was a good pro tip number one.
But if you actually want to make a backswing as well too, then we could kind of keep working our way up. Just talk about the knees then. So as the golfer then starts their backswing, allowing the knees to change flex. I think a lot of people fight that intentionally. Kind of coming back to your idea of restricting the hip turn, they're trying to restrict the change in the knee flex. Yeah. So straightening the trail leg, adding some flex to the lead leg, just then makes it easier to then turn the hips. So flaring the feet, changing the knee flex, as long as it makes turning the hips easier, it makes just moving easier as well. So
a lot of people try to play golf by making themselves very inflexible, like you're playing in a body cast. And hit the ball really far, gain some more club head speed. You need to do the opposite of that, like release all of those pain points that keep you restricted. Yep. And that's a good model swing. All right, so the next one is the downswing error that people can make. So check out tech swing up here. I've drawn a couple of green lines on you. That's really representing the amount that you're bent forward. So with some fancy drawing, get a load of this, Brad. Most people at this point in time are bent forward about 40 degrees. Now, at the same point in time on the downswing, there's a spot right about in here where your lead arm is pretty close to horizontal, or if anything, it's a little bit past that, close to 45 degrees to the ground. Somewhere between that frame and this one is a good time to be bent right back in that forward bend again. There aren't too many players who play golf at any kind of level that are good that don't follow that rule. I actually can't remember ever measuring anyone who didn't follow that rule, but the better players in particular. There is a tiny little window that you bend yourself backward and then you bend yourself forward again. This is step number one of, well, it's actually step number two of swinging faster, but it's step number one of being able to really propel yourself forward and moving faster, which is that third piece. So at this point in time, you're almost back in that exact same 40-degree bend. Next step is now the third step in the whole equation, which is get back up again. So you know that when you watch PGA Tour players, we'll zoom over here to the front view of Brad at this point in time. When I draw that same arrow, we'll do it in yellow this time, on your thorax or the back of your spine, and we start looking at the angle of your pelvis. Notice how those are backward now. I would really only do your hips, I'd make those level at this point in time. You're trying to hit this really far, so there's more extension in that. And that's just the term extension of moving yourself backward to some degree. And then once you go past how you would normally stand up, now you're really in extension with your thoracic spine going backwards. So that 40-degree forward bend, demonstrate that one again. On the downswing is important, so that now you've made like the beginning of a catapult, or what you'd think of as like a slingshot. He's pulled that slingshot back, and then from this point in time until his right arm's parallel through the ball, this is where he's going to bend himself backward, and that's you letting go of that slingshot, firing that golf ball down the driving range for sure. Most people don't do enough of either one of those, in particular the follow through. I rarely meet a bad golfer or someone who swings slow and who wants more speed that isn't bent backward enough in the follow through. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's important not just for swinging faster, but even just club delivery too.
Well, that's good.
Helps everything.
You're saying I'm not a liar. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you.
Didn't say that.
So since you did say that, here's what you can do. If you wanted to try to fix these things, we talked about some complicated things, winding it up, for example. There's a lot that goes into that, but then to make a downswing that's fast and rip this ball down the fairway is tricky. So the way I would tell people to start is do one thing at a time. First thing is just wind it up in the backswing. So grab a ball and demonstrate how that one would look like. So the only thing Brad should be practicing, if it's a backswing oriented piece, is just to turn himself backward as far as he can go. Do the aspects he talked about at address, turn your foot out, turn your knee out, make a long swing, like all you got, and then just punch this ball down the fairway trying to do that. He's not worried about how perfect his form is through the ball yet. Fair? Mm-hmm. When that looks really good, we'll look at this one on the camera just to help people see that one. Top of the swing on this one, your shoulders will be turned 120 degrees and your hips closer to 70 degrees in that picture. That's how you practice the backswing. Then you hit. I find too many people who are worried about their entire swing and the results of the shot don't change their form or their motor program, which is just your swing is all up here in your brain. It isn't a physical thing that some people are just can do better than someone else. It's this picture in your head is better. The slower you go and the less you worry about. So if you're just dedicating towards the backswing, you'll be able to change your motor program or your swing faster. Sound good so far? Miss anything? No, didn't think I did.
All good.
On the downswing though, the bending forward part, this one is a little trickier to do as well, because this is a part of your swing when your lead arm's parallel to the ground on the way down, where a lot of things are moving really fast. So there's a lot happening as well. You're turning yourself open, your knees are flexing, your neck is flexing forward, your lead arm is starting to move across your chest this way, that abduction. Your wrists are changing flex, your elbows changing flex. We're just barely like scratching the surface on all the things you could talk about. But because those are hard to do, this is how I'd suggest practicing the downswing. So just make your backswing however you think is fairly normal. Then on the way down, move yourself down to where your lead arm's just past parallel to the ground, and then bend yourself even more forward with your knee flex and your hips, and then go ahead and punch this ball down the fairway. Make some practice swings that way. That's teaching you how to bend yourself forward more and longer before getting back up again. Good? And I think I've even seen PGA Tour players who need some help with that one too. The ones who are the shortest hitters don't bend forward long enough. So this isn't just for you, it's for anybody who plays golf. And then that last one is getting back up again. So this is the one I think that's the most critical for people to understand, because it's such a huge separator of skill. That amount you're bent back with your shoulders and your neck all the way into your follow through that makes you look like a PGA Tour player is one that is a key separator of skill levels. The best golfers do this more than the worst. The worst are trying to hit a shot and keep your head down, or it looks like you're staring down at the ground looking for your contact lens after you hit a shot. That's the worst way to play. So the follow through, or how to get back up again. So I'd start just on the downswing again when you're bent forward the most, and now wouldn't worry about bending more forward, don't worry about anything else. Now the trick from this point in time is for Brad to actually move the middle of the grip, or the butt end of the club, or this end of the grip, or 6 inches down the shaft, whatever it is that you want to focus on has to move upward, so that trajectory is more this way at that point in time. To do that, he has to move himself. That's the trick. Thanks for not hitting me too, that's very nice of you. Didn't know what was going to happen there. The trajectory has to be more upward than downward. The faster you can do that, as your wrists start to uncock or move towards ulnar deviation, that's a big piece to help you move this club faster. That's for a longer story, it's a bigger one. I'm sure we'll have plenty of videos on that too. But that skill, to practice that, get down in the downswing again, and then coming through this ball, I want you just to throw the brakes on your downswing and then move as fast as you can all the way to the finish and bend yourself backward all you got. Exactly. So you practice each one of those things one at a time. Ready for the pro tip, the bonus tip?
Let's hear it.
You haven't known about anything I was going to say yet. So this has been more fun.
I'm just trying to demonstrate to the best of my ability.
You haven't screwed up too bad. This is good. The best pro tip I can give you here was in a biomechanics lab in 2005. That was the first time I ever went to one in Illinois. I asked the biomechanics professor, what's one way that you could swing faster? And he didn't really know much about golf, but he also started putting it in my head that just the faster you swing throughout the entire swing, the more force you're always applying to the club. So you've got a chance to swing faster. Doesn't mean you're going to, but that's a good start. So one thing that you could do is, even from address until the top of the swing, try to move that club while still winding it up as best you can, as fast as you can. There's an element of how you need to pull the shaft down faster on the way down, and just the whole idea of moving quicker is a good start to swinging faster in general. Go with that?
Can I try that one?
Yeah, you want to try that one? Faster, Brad, faster.
Fast
Brad doesn't
backswing.
really need faster. He's always practicing faster. But that's an easy way for you to carry 300 plus yards, no big deal. So that's it. Those are your 3 keys to increasing speed. You've got your don't make short swings, you're bent forward incorrectly throughout the entire swing to really use yourself as a slingshot to hit it far. And then chances are you're moving too slow. Get it all going faster. So all of this will make you swing faster, and I know it'll help you play better. Check out more content that we've created related to speed and access your free GOLFTEC account in the links below. Now, if you did like this video, as always, go ahead and click thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, go ahead and click thumbs down 2 times. My friend Eric taught me that one. And then also you can subscribe to all of our videos and keep up with the latest content we have. Thanks for your help, Brad. You did pretty good.
You're okay, coach.
Thanks.